Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Extra Point. I'm Lauro Antonio with James Gonzalez, Isaiah Leong, and Ben Kirsch will be joining us shortly. And James, how's it going?
It's going fine here on a Sunday night. Not related, but had some basketball on today with the All-Star game. And hi, Christy. And it's an honor to be here tonight.
It is great to be on here, and looking forward to putting a bow on the 2021 season, and then look ahead to 2022. So, James, I'm going to start with you. What are your what is your reflection on the Raiders' 2021 season? John Gruden resigned after 5 games. Rich Bisaccia took over, and the Raiders went to the playoffs. And this Raider team avoided all this distraction and all this, James. And I'll tell you what, I think the Raiders heading into 2022, this Raider team is in good hands with Josh McDaniels. As a Patriot fan myself, I'll tell you, you guys are getting one heck of a football coach in Josh McDaniels.
I hope, sir. I hope that's the case, certainly. Yeah, about 2021, you come in with some expectations. You have certain players in place, mostly young players, of course. The defense was a little bit better. And then off the field issues were just crazy with the Gruden thing, Henry Ruggs, the third issue, Damon Arnett. It just kept being hard being a fan. You have to defend your team, but luckily the team's been in the right spot when it comes to race relations and people relations, and it was great having Carl Nassib, of course, and the season got off to a hot start, 3-0, and then it was just a tailspin, honestly, of wins and losses, and it was like that all the way to the end. That week 18 game with the Chargers was just wild. I was watching with friends, and to beat your division rival like that and get into the playoffs was just crazy. The playoff game, I wasn't expecting to win at all with Cincinnati, but they sure gave it everything they had. Maybe certain calls didn't go our way, but that's expected being a Raider fan and a follower. So overall, it was just a surprise getting into the playoffs through hell and back. I can only hope, as we go into the 2022 season, that the Raiders will be in the wild card. Let's just say that.
And also, when I ask you, what is your overall thoughts on Josh McDaniels being the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, and then Dave Ziegler now being the new general manager of the Raiders?
Yeah, listen, I hear good things. I hear good things. I hear bad things, and I'm just hoping for the good things to come up. It'll show in the draft with whomever the Raiders get in the later rounds. I'm hoping that some of that Patriot way comes to Las Vegas, and Some players are picked that are under the radar, but do their job, so to speak, like Belichick says. And that a culture change will come with the Raiders. We need that. We need some stability. We need someone that will come in, be a leader of men, and do the right things on and off the field. And hopefully, there's no emails out there with the two guys coming in from New England. With Josh McDaniels, you hope that he has a good thing with players. You hope he doesn't turn off the team and nobody plays for him. So we'll see about all that in training camp. We'll see how all that goes, and don't be surprised. Opening day and all that is not too far away when you think about it. I know everybody was clamoring, saying, "Man, this is the first Sunday without NFL football," but there's always some type of news out there.
Yeah, there is some news out there, I'll tell you that. But at the same time, I'll tell you that I think that the Raiders, if you look at it, you got Carr, you got Jacobs, you got Waller. And do you think all three of those guys are going to thrive under Josh McDaniels' offense?
I'm hearing good things with Carr's relationship with McDaniels. Now, the only thing is, I heard that before with Carr and Gruden, like they were going to live by each other and work together. And then it just seemed like that relationship didn't work out well. But then Gruden left, and then things started out to be good. So I'm interested to see how that dynamic works with those two guys. And then with the defense, I'm hoping for the best. We'll see. It's all up in the air, really. I'm just hoping for stability, honestly, and trust.
And also, what do you think your biggest offseason need is for the Raiders?
First of all, I think got to get a playmaker receiver, wide receiver. Um, I have to say, you either draft USC receiver Drake London if he's available, or Ohio State's Garrett Wilson or Chris Olivier. Uh, I would be happy with any of those three receivers, and even the ones that are below them. With Ruggs making the decision he did, whether it was impaired or not, he's not going to be around, of course. So there's a need for a playmaker, and then also the other the needs, I guess you would say, maybe some more linebacker help or safety help defensively. I think the defensive line is okay with the Raiders, but you can always get some more help there. And then when you speak about help is always needed offensive line, the Raiders went from one of the most experienced offensive lines in 2020 to one of the most youngest in 2021. So I think finding, offensive line help through the draft or through free agency, that wouldn't hurt either. So I think that's my three biggest. I think that's my three biggest only, honestly.
I mean, I think if what you said was right. I mean, I think the Raiders definitely need a receiver. I have them getting Drake London at 22. I think that he would be a really good weapon for Derek Carr. And I think he needs a number one. I think that with Henry Ruggs gone, I think that the Raiders need a number one receiver. I think the defense is going to be fine. I mean, Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, he likes to run both a 3-4 and a 4-3 scheme. So basically, the system will be in place under Patrick Graham.
You just gotta have the right players and then the right focus coming into every game that you can get the job done, and then you change on the fly. You adapt to change when you're facing certain teams. Certain teams like to run more or pass more. Just gotta adjust and take care of business.
All right. So, anyways, looking at the coaching staff, you right now need a running backs coach and a tight ends coach. I kind of think that one of the additions that I could see happening is that Adam Gase comes back as the assistant head coach and tight ends coach for the Raiders under Josh McDaniels, because the two work together in Denver. So I really could see Adam Gase coming back, rejoining the Raiders, rejoining Josh McDaniels, reuniting with him. If you're cool with it, I think he has had success being a coordinator in the league, but at the same time, he's a bad head coach. So let's kind of break down your coaching staff here. So you have Mick Lombardi. He used to be the wide receivers coach for the New England Patriots. He will be the offensive coordinator. What do you expect to happen on the offensive side of the ball? Is Josh McDaniels going to be the one that's going to be calling the plays offensively?
I think he should, because he'll have the most trust with Derek Carr. Lombardi is a good mind as well, but I think when it comes down to it, I think you want to go with the head coach. It all falls on him. And I'm wondering, in that system there, is Derek Carr going to roll out more and make plays happen with his feet, or is he going to stay in the pocket and get submerged? That's what I hate seeing last year. He just stayed in the pocket sometimes too long, and strip sacks would happen and whatnot. So I would love to see Derek Carr, and that seems to be the theme with quarterbacks nowadays, where you have a running quarterback. Even if you don't have a running quarterback, they still roll out and make things happen with the arm. And part of that could be the new playmaker wide receiver. I don't have an issue if they keep Zay Jones. I think he did some things last year, and that would help definitely with the offense.
Yeah, that might be good for the Raiders coaching staff too. So you had Mick Lombardi as offensive coordinator. Bo Hardegree is now the quarterbacks coach. You still need a running backs and tight ends coach. Edgar Bennett is retained as the wide receivers coach. Cameron Brulisto is now the offensive line coach. And then for the defensive coaches, you got Patrick Graham as the defensive coordinator. Frank Oakham is now defensive line. And also talk about a former NFL player that you might be familiar with, and that is Antonio Pierce, who is going to be coaching the linebackers.
Yeah, I like what Antonio. I thought you were almost going to say Antonio Brown. I was going to have to jump through there. No, Antonio Pierce, he got fired from his job, but he definitely has experience. He has a good rapport with his players. You can see that on the sideline where he coached before. So I really like that move. And
that's a good.
Then the
good
new defensive coordinator. Yeah, the new defensive coordinator. I'm sorry, Patrick. What was his last name?
Patrick Graham.
Patrick Graham. Okay, I'll remember his last name because
he used to be the Patriots linebackers coach.
I think he has so much pressure on him. Not more than McDaniels and Lombardi on offense, because the spotlight is definitely on Carr. But when you think about it, the defense with Patrick Graham, even though it's the same system, you got to have players execute. It's like what I said before. And you cannot let big plays happen downfield. That's been happening a lot. The running game, stopping the run wasn't such a bad thing for once with the Raiders. That used to be a big Achilles heel. And now the passing after a while did the Raiders in last year. So I want to see the big plays and knockaways happen downfield. So I'm hoping Patrick Graham can make that happen. Teach those players, the right way to cover without, getting holding and PI penalties.
Then you got Jason Simmons, defensive passing game coordinator / secondary coach. And then Chris Ash is now your defensive backs coach. And you got a veteran assistant on the staff, and he will be your senior defensive assistant. And he used to be a member of the New England Patriots coaching staff as the linebackers coach, and that is Rob Ryan. How do you feel about Rob Ryan returning to Raider Nation?
Well, first of all, with Ash, he's got a big assignment there, going back to what I was talking about with making plays happen, tipping the ball, not getting flagged for pass interference or holding. I'm looking forward to that. And how textbook the players will be taught, because with Bill Belichick, all the coaches learn from him how to do things by the book, how to do game situations. I loved, and this goes back to Belichick. If you ever seen his behind the scenes stuff, mic'd up stuff in training camp, they go through situations, like 3rd and 8. What are you going to do here? 1st and 10, from your own 5. What are you going to do here? And they'll put a clock on it, So I really want to see that with the Raiders. And then you talk about Rob Ryan. It was back with the Raiders back then. I think it was over a decade ago, honestly. He's always been a player's favorite. It always seemed like, and the fans really loved him. They loved his look, especially. They loved how furious he would get and how he would take for his players. So I'm happy that he's back. He adds a certain zest to the Raiders that someone has been missing. And as we talk about coaching, Rich Bisaccia, I'm always torn on him staying because he did such a great job. The players loved him. The special teams was one of the best in the NFL. So I'm kind of sad that he's gone. Honestly, it seemed like everybody loved him in the organization and all the players. I think I hope he does wonders for Green Bay, who's last with special teams.
He would be. Hey, I think Rich Bisaccia is going to do a great job with the Packers special teams here. And your new special teams coordinator is Tom McMahon. He was the Denver Broncos special teams coordinator from 2018 to 2021, and now he joins the Las Vegas Raiders in that same role. And let's talk about some other coaching additions that we think the Raiders should add. Do you think the Raiders should add Adam Gase because of his familiarity with Josh McDaniels?
First of all, with that special teams coordinator, the new one, he doesn't have to change a darn thing. Just go in there, do your job, and that's it. It's really simple. Whew. All the pressures with Adam Gase, he would be very unwanted the first part of, with him coming in with the Raiders. I'd give him a chance and just say, hey, are you completely gone with taking a year off from the experience you had with the Jets? How is your mental side? Are you ready to teach? Are you ready to be a part of something special? And it doesn't hurt, in a sense, going back home with Josh McDaniels. I know we were talking about it, I think, with Isaiah, with where would Adam Gase go next? And I think you guys were talking about he was going back to the Patriots as offensive coordinator.
He could be, but I think the Patriots want to promote someone within.
Yeah. So it's up in the air for sure with Gase. Either spot is a safe landing spot for him. Let's just say that. So I'm like 50-50 on Gase right now if you bring him in with the Raiders.
Where would he be? Tight ends coach or running backs coach?
Both are really good jobs position-wise. You got you're pretty deep in those jobs, and you have Pro Bowlers, with Waller, tight end, and Jacobs as a running back, and then you have the backups. I'd put him at tight end and help out the backup tight ends get more involved, like Foster Murnau. I was hoping he would have broke out and had some games when Waller was gone. So hopefully he could just be another pair of eyes that will help McDaniels and especially Derek Carr, see the tight ends better downfield.
Yeah, he could definitely be that, but I'm kind of thinking what he should be is assistant head coach and tight ends coach. What do you think of that?
I I guess I'm up to it. Whatever. Again, whatever can help people get better, and the coaches can always get better too. And being in, like I said, another pair of eyes, having some experience, and everybody fitting together in one system and showing others how this system is going to work. Like I said, I'm hoping for it. We'll see.
And then also before we get to Isaiah here, so let's talk about some pending free agents for the Raiders. So which one pending free agent would you want back? Is it let's take a look. Do you want Richie Incognito back to kind of stabilize the offensive line? Would you want Jalen Richard back? Or would you want Mariota back as the backup? Or you get a different backup quarterback like Jacoby Brissett because he knows Josh McDaniels' offense pretty well.
I'd go with Jacoby Brissett. I think he can lead teams a little better than Mariota. Mariota is that one-trick pony with running, the option on third down plays. And I'm not hating on Mariota in any sort of way. I just think Jacoby Brissett can definitely pass better. You saw him with the Dolphins when Tua would have his issues or injuries. Brissett would come in and lead the Dolphins. So I think I would go with Brissett. And then Jalen Richard, he's been with the Raiders a while now, since Oakland. It wouldn't be hard letting him go. The thing is, I would love someone from the draft come in as a running back and really get younger in that position as a backup and possibly a little bit better. The thing is with Richard too, I noticed he was never the same after he got hit one time in 2017. Before that, though, he was running pretty freely. And then he got hit one game and he was out for a little bit and he hasn't been the same. So I could see them parting ways with him, honestly.
That could be. And we want to welcome Isaiah here. And we got some 49er questions for you, Isaiah. So how's it going tonight? And are you ready for some 49er questions as we reflect on this 2021 season?
I'm back. I am so glad to be on with you guys tonight. It's going to be a great show, ready to wrap up and put a bow to this 2021-22 NFL season. It was a great season. A lot of great stuff happened in the regular season. The playoffs were phenomenal from start to finish. A lot of just outstanding down-to-the-wire games. And, I'm just really psyched for this show just because I know, it's not the same as football, but I was watching the Michigan-Wisconsin game today while at work, and it got me into a fighting spirit. So I'm ready for tonight's show. I'm ready. I can't wait for it. I've been looking forward to tonight's show. And I know we're not going to talk about what happened today, but still, that game got me into the fighting spirit, and I'm ready to show out and, put on a great show for the fans.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your 49ers, Isaiah. So first half of the season, they were off to somewhat of a sloppy start. And then in the second half, they got hot, made the playoffs, made it to the NFC Championship game, but lost to the LA Rams. And talk about this was probably Jimmy Garoppolo's final year as the starter for the 49ers. And you're now going to transition into a new era with Trey Lance. And what were your kind of things that you liked about the 49ers this year, and what do you want to see from them heading into next season?
I love that the 49ers play to their potential, and a lot of the players that typically always get injured stayed fairly healthy this year. I'll say that. A lot of the offensive linemen, defensive linemen, I know we had a little injuries basically throughout the entire regular season, but a lot of them came back strong, and it wasn't like season-ending injuries that, we're used to seeing from the 49ers. I'm just glad that we didn't get any catastrophic injuries. It seems like every single year in the Kyle Shanahan era, we've been suffering catastrophic injuries after catastrophic injuries after catastrophic injuries. And I'm kind of glad that we stayed fairly healthy this year. Obviously you're going to have your injuries. It's football. It's the nature of the beast. But I'm glad that we stayed fairly healthy this year. And I think that, I'm kind of glad that Trey Lance got to sit for a year, just because I think that quarterbacks that sit for a year and learn and develop, especially in a complex offensive system that is the Kyle Shanahan offense, they tend to do better in their careers, rather than a guy that just comes in as a rookie and comes in and, gets shelled, like Trevor Lawrence or even Zach Wilson and even Sam Darnold. I mean, that guy has not been the same ever since his first, 3 disastrous years with the New York Jets, taking all those hits and throwing all those interceptions. His confidence just hasn't been the same. So, it was I'm just glad Trey Lance got to sit a year. I'm glad that the Niners kind of stayed healthy, and also I'm kind of glad that the Niners played up to their potential, because that first half of the season, I mean, it was looking very bleak. It got to the point where I was this close, fellas, to canceling the 49ers season like I did with the Los Angeles Lakers, because they were like 3-5. They had just lost to Arizona with Colt McCoy as their quarterback, not Kyler Murray. Colt McCoy, they lost to him, and I was on the brink of canceling their season. Plus, they were playing the LA Rams the next weeks, and then after that, I believe they had like two other tough games. So they were entering the hard part of their schedule, and I was like, "You're 3-5. You just lost to Colt McCoy. You got not even just lost, but you got blasted by Colt McCoy's led Cardinals." And I was like, there's no way that this team is even going to come remotely close to expectations. But thankfully, I was wrong, and they found their identity, and they started playing to their potential. They found their identity in the second half, running the football, playing great defense. That's who the Niners are, and I'm kind of glad that they finally got back to that identity. But I want to see more explosive plays in the passing game when the Trey Lance era begins next season. So it was a great season. The Niners shocked everybody in the playoffs. They made it really far in the playoffs. A lot of people weren't even expecting them to get even out of the wild card round, let alone the NFC Championship. So just a great season. There's really not much you can complain about. The reason why I've been saying like I'm still hurting from the NFC Championship loss is because, yeah, I know like we weren't supposed to make it that far, but to get that far and to be this close to getting to the Super Bowl, and James has it right there, the drop interception heard around the world from Jaquiski Tartt just really stings to this very day. But looking back at the season, I mean, it was just a season that looked bleak, and it just completely turned around, and I'm really grateful that the Niners finally played up to potential.
They did, and if you know that when they're healthy, Isaiah, this team is very deep. And I'm very, very excited about the Trey Lance era, because Kyle has his own guy, and I think that Kyle and his coaching staff are going to do a great job with him. Talk about some notable players that had bounce-back seasons after injury, such as George Kittle. Nice bounce-back season for George Kittle, and a nice comeback season from Nick Bosa.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal comeback season by Nick Bosa. I mean, who expected him to get 15 sacks and be an absolute game record? If you count the sacks that he had in the postseason, he had like 22 sacks in total. Just a complete dominant season from him. It was great to see him back. It was like he never left and he never tore that ACL. So it was good to see that. George Kittle, I mean, when George Kittle got hurt, you you knew that he was going to be out, but you knew that when he came back, that he was going to be back to the George Kittle of old, going, 150% every time he's on the football field, running and hitting people like crazy and catching the passes. So I'm not surprised that he bounced back and became the George Kittle of old. That just who he is as a football player. And I would say like the other guys that had bounce back seasons. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, this guy, we crap on him all the time, but he had a really good bounce back season after, an injury plagued 2019 and 2020. And then I'm looking from top to bottom in terms of bounce back seasons. Robbie Gould had one too. I mean, he was fantastic in the regular season. He was even better in the postseason. This guy was kind of injured he was injured, in 2019, 2020, and he bounced back big time. He struggled a little bit there in 2019, 2020 as well. So he had a nice bounce back season. And then, I would say the guy that he didn't really get hurt, but he had like a much better season than I think a lot of people are giving him credit for, me included, and that is Josh Norman. This guy had 7 forced fumbles. I think he was in the top of the league when it came to forced fumbles. So that was like a thing that I know he didn't get a lot of interceptions. I think he only had 1 pick, but 7 forced fumbles made a difference. Got the ball back to the offense. So gotta give him a shout out for having a bounce back season. I know he struggled in Buffalo. Buffalo didn't want to bring him back. And then the Redskins also cut him as well before Buffalo. And he comes to the Niners because the Niners were really depleted. They really needed him back, or they needed a veteran corner. And they got a really productive Josh Norman, even though the stats really didn't say it. But the 7 forced fumbles were really impressive.
They were, but we're gonna have James add something about Robbie Gould before I hand it back to Isaiah. And we want to welcome Ben Kearse to the show here, and in just a moment, he and I will be breaking down the Patriots outlook and all that. So, James, what do you want to add about Robbie Gould?
Yeah, real quick about Robbie Gould. He made some awesome kicks, defining kicks, but it seemed like nothing fazed him this year, and it was great to see. There were times where the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders were lined up for, I think, the beginning of the game, and he just kicked right above them. I think something happened in Green Bay where, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but he still kicked over those guys. Same thing in LA for the championship game. He didn't care about any of that. He just kicked field goals and won games. And it was good to see because I wondered about his career because he's getting down to the end. So I just had to add that in because it was a crazy 49ers season with kicking and ending seasons when you think about it, with Green Bay losing to him like that. That was amazing.
And Ben, welcome to the show here. I mean, we talked a lot about the Patriots 2022 season, and Ben, we got more to be talking about here today, actually.
Yeah, man, I'm excited.
So we lost Isaiah here. He'll be back shortly, so we'll get back to him about the 49ers in just a minute. So let's talk about the Patriots 2022 season, Ben, and let's break it down. I mean, this was a much better season for the Patriots. They started out 2-4 to begin the season, but they overcame that by winning 8 straight games. Mac Jones hit the rookie wall, but at the same time, they came into Buffalo and lost. And then just recently, right after that, the Patriots lost Josh McDaniels to be the head coach of the Raiders. We're going to talk about that tonight and how the coaching staff's going to work out, Ben. And all in all, it was a really good season for the New England Patriots, and I think we do expect this team to get even grow as a unit, as this young team has a bright future.
Yeah, well, I'd like to thank you guys for having me on, like usual. But in terms of this Patriots season, I thought this was a very, well, I guess you could say overall successful with all kind of things considered. Obviously, not the end result, kind of ending part of the season that we were expecting or hoping for. But all in all, kind of when you look back on this, it's with a rookie quarterback, first year with a very tough system, and essentially kind of starting off kind of the season a little bit slow. Some tough games. Obviously the Brady game was obviously a highlight game around the season, despite the loss. And then kind of the mid part of the season, we hit a bunch of a couple of opponents that were, I wouldn't say easier, but kind of very up there in terms of being able to beat. Some teams. Obviously, beating the Jets, twice is usual for Patriot fans still, despite not having Brady. The Dallas game, despite the loss, that was an OT game. I thought that we were right in that game. Our defense, I thought, really kind of got going kind of mid part of the season, kind of got that 7-game winning streak. Really kind of kickstarting. A lot of people started really believing. A lot of outside teams are like, oh, here we go again with the Patriots. Zero chance they can go back to the Super Bowl, all this type of talk. And then essentially right as the bye kind of kicked in, they faced a lot of good teams, and they were kind of, tested to see in terms of how really good this team would be. And the last, 5 weeks, they lost the last 4 out of 5, including the wild card game against the Buffalo Bills, which they got absolutely slaughtered with. Buffalo is clearly the better team talent-wise, and it just really came to show that, this team, as much as they made a lot of strides, they still have a lot of room to improve. And I do think that, with the roster that they had, it was very roster flawed. And I'm not saying that the mid part of the season was very fluky per se, you could say, but this obviously the team wasn't as good at the end of the season maybe as what we thought. And I think it was just because we saw a lot more better competition. A lot in that 7-game winning streak. We faced a lot of mediocre type of teams / quarterback and maybe some key players out with those certain teams. Like, for instance, when we played the Titans, they didn't have Derrick Henry or A.J. Brown. When we played the Bills the first time, you can argue, that was obviously an important masterpiece from Bill Belichick, an absolute, honestly, it was like windstorm condition. So, I mean, it was a 14-10 type win, which I give him a lot of credit for, but that game really could have won either way. And obviously, I don't know the reason why. Why are they playing that? The obviously Atlanta game, Atlanta wasn't very good. Cleveland, I thought was a decent one. I mean, I was fortunate to be there, so maybe they just listened to me when I was there. And then the Chargers. I thought the Chargers, low-key, was probably our best one in the season. Back-to-back years against Justin Herbert, who is really up there in top 5, top 10 and passing yards with that type of offense. I actually thought during that 7-game 7-game winning streak, that was probably our best win, or close to. Obviously they lost their finale season to the hands of James's Chargers. So, but it was a very good season, with all things considered, and hopefully that they can obviously add some stuff to their receiving group. Their defense has to get a little bit faster. But to finish 10-7, if you asked me before their season and to play in a playoff game, I probably think I'm going to say you're crazy a bit here. And so they proved me wrong. They're 8-4 in the conference, but they still have a lot of work to do.
They definitely have work to do. Now that Josh McDaniels is gone, now they're the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And I've been hearing reports such as promoting Nick Caley from tight ends coach to offensive coordinator. I could see that now. I don't think that we're going to get Bill O'Brien back. Matt Patricia could be back on the coaching staff on the offensive side of the football. He has had experience coaching the offensive side of the football as an assistant offensive line coach. He used to be an offensive lineman in college. I think he would be a great offensive line coach for the Patriots, and he would be an assistant head coach for Bill Belichick. Glad to have Joe Judge back. I'm kind of thinking now he's going to be working with the tight ends now, Ben. And then Ivan Fears, I think, is going to be retiring. And then I think Vinny Senrasi will now be the new running backs coach. And I think the Patriots bring back Jerry Shaplinski to be the quarterbacks coach. But how concerned are you about how the offensive staff's going to look like next year. But are you going to panic about it now? Do you think that adding Matt Patricia, not as an offensive play caller, but having him be the offensive line coach and assistant head coach, would be good for Patricia to be Belichick's co-head coach?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of roster turnover with this team, and like I said before to James, your guys are taking a lot of our guys, coaching wise. You're taking obviously McDaniels as our head coach. You guys are taking, of course, the head of the personnel group and
Dave
Elliot
Ziegler.
Wolf,
It's Dave Ziegler.
David Ziegler, yeah. So, yeah, you guys are taking a good amount of our coaching staff. So, of course, that's I think our main priority as of right now, before the draft and free agency, is to really kind of bolster our offensive coordinator position and really actually find a defensive coordinator, which we really haven't for many seasons. And whether it's Gerard Mayo, I would have loved Brian Flores, but obviously he just had a gig as of the other day with the Steelers, which I am very happy for him despite his recent situation here. But I would love Bill O'Brien. I think that would be my favorite. And look, y'all, I mean, what's going as crazy as it sounds, what about Eric Bieniemy? Eric Bieniemy's still out there. I mean, you would have thought by now that he maybe would have a job somewhere. I know that Saints were kind of rumored in, but I don't know. Between Bill O'Brien and Bieniemy, I think would kind of be my top two dream scenarios as of right now for OC. I know Laura also said Adam Gase too, but
I said Adam Gase, but I also wanted to tell you, Ben, don't rule out Nick Caley, the tight end.
Nick Caley too. Yeah, I did hear that from our very own CLNS Media's Boston, Eldon Lazar, who was doing a lot of off-season questions per se. And he said Nick Caley is our tight ends coach, and he essentially said that Caley knows a lot of our offense, our tight ends, our receivers, so he could be an in-house option if we kind of go that route. And
I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to go in-house, I think.
Well, you would think kind of at this point in time, though, right, that, I mean, you would have thought kind of the outside candidates probably be hired, if anything, for the Patriots as of right now. We're getting into about 2 to 3 weeks before free agency and the tagging deadline. So I personally think that they're going to probably go in-house and, just kind of plug the pieces from there, which I don't really per se like. I kind of wish that they kind of went outside and try to do something else. But, as long as we still continue to have the best coach out there in Belichick, I do trust still a lot in terms of what he's trying to do. But I do really want to see what we can do with an offensive coordinator and defensive coach. I think if we try to go in-house with defensive coordinator, especially with a roster that has a lot of holes defensively, I think it's going to definitely be a long, interesting offseason.
It is going to be a long, interesting offseason for the Patriots. But in Bill, we trust here. But anyways, let's talk about offseason needs for the Patriots. I think my top offseason needs for the Patriots is a wide receiver, defensive end, and inside linebacker. Those are basically my top three needs for the Patriots. What about you, Ben?
My first need is to figure out the coaching staff. I think that's the first thing out of anything. Get your offensive coordinator, get your defensive coordinator. Essentially, we need somebody outside of Belichick to kind of – essentially, the rumor out there was in our long winning streak was Belichick was coaching our defense, and then essentially somebody was really helping out more offensively. Probably Josh was. Now, I think – Joe Judge is, I guess you could say, our offensive assistant. I would have hated him being our offensive coordinator, but, if he's still within the role, at least he knows the organization, he knows the system. So it is what it is. I'm fine with it. But if you want to go offensive coordinator in-house, I'd probably go with the name that Lower was talking about, David Caley. I think that
Nick Caley.
Nick Caley, yeah. And then I think from there, kind of just shoring up the coaching staff, and then Lower, like you said. Draft, I would probably go receiver. I know that Bill's had some bad drafts in the past with drafting receivers. So I think part of me thinks that my in-house thinking, he'll probably either trade back, knowing him, or he'll go defense, defensive back or whatever. If he try to goes defensive back first, I think that's a sign, meaning we won't pay J.C. Jackson, which is probably our main priority going into the season. So that should be interesting. I think you have to really pay JC, pay him all the money. But I did hear today that here's an Instagram thing that somebody posted out on Twitter, and I think he was looking for 170 million to 180 million. And I don't know if he's really worth that as much as he's been, a good piece for us for a while. So, we'll see. We'll see, obviously, because, he's a vital part to our defense, even though I still think Judon's our best player defensively. So, and then receiver lower free agency. Do we go after? I know we talked about this on Lower and Friends a couple days ago during the week. I would love Allen Robinson. I don't think you have to pay the absolute bag for him, but you need to get somebody on the outside, which we haven't for a while, and get that true number one for Mac Jones. That can able to stretch the field, take a defense off, and Nelson Aguilar, I know James's guy from Vegas. He was a decent guy that is fine, essentially running digs and stuff, but he's not a guy that's going to essentially break right off the line of scrimmage and obviously kind of break, one thing to the house. I would love a trade with Calvin Ridley. I think that's really be a perfect fit for Mac Jones. He knows Mac Jones personally playing, I think, in college, or at least if he played in college, he knows who Mac Jones would be, and you wouldn't have to really trade a lot to get him. I think that you'd probably only be able to trade really need a second round pick. And also, too, lower, I would also welcome Brandon Cooks coming back, too. I think Brandon Cooks would also, because he's been in the system, and he also was saying, I remember a couple years ago when he was on the Devin McCourty podcast, which I actually got the chance to be on, both McCourties were asking Brandon Cooks, where was your favorite place to play and why? And I do recall him saying that he liked playing his time in New England. And so I do think that if there's a chance that he might come back, I think he really would entertain that idea. So I think if you go trade route, I would entertain Brandon Cooks reunion or Calvin Ridley. And then maybe, outside free agency, a couple guys. I don't think that they'll go big, but Isaiah McKenzie from the Bills, Braxton Berrios, a reunion, who's from the Jets. Chris Godwin would be a dream. Devontae Adams obviously would be the big star dream, which I think James's team could look at Devontae Adams, which, as crazy as that sounds, I think
he could play with Derek Carr again, but I think he's going to stay in Green Bay.
Oh, I do too. I do think that he's probably going to go back, but obviously the Aaron Rodgers situation, which we'll talk about our QB carousel during this time, which I am.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a little bit.
A lot of bold takes for these quarterbacks to be on the move. Not all of them, but it's going to be really fun in terms of how you guys feel and what I get here. But yeah, I think defensively too, Laura. I know we talked about the defense. We got to get an outside pass rusher outside of Judon, and I think that Chandler Jones would be a fantastic fit. Coming back. He still has about 10 or more sacks per season, in his age, and so he knows the system, and I think I love that there.
Or talk about this, Ben. I have this on my mock draft. I mean, I have Trayvon Walker, the defensive end from Georgia. I want him to be a Patriot. If you put him at defensive end, get Chandler Jones back to play outside linebacker with Matt Judon, move Kyle Van Noy to middle linebacker. That's a good defense.
Yeah. So I think you got to pay JC all the money. You got to upgrade via the draft or free agency at receiver or trade. I would kind of really like the trade, preferably for a receiver, and then linebacker.
Honestly, Ben, to be honest with you, I want John Mechie to be Mac's number one.
I wouldn't see. I disagree, Lord. I think Mechie would be a good piece, but I wouldn't want to trust him knowing the system his first year coming in and especially going like that on the run. I would prefer to have somebody come in that's been a little more veteran, ready. You can still draft Mechie, but I would love to at least add somebody else. Kind of similar to the tight end situation. You get Hunter Henry, you also add Jonnu Smith, but I really think for an offense like this, that means that maybe you have to trade bait, cut ties with N'Keal Harry. I know you also said too lower. We talked about Isaiah Wynn. You got to save up some money. Preferably, if you want to have John Mechie as a number one, as talented as he is, I would not be comfortable having that alongside of our other pieces to essentially where I want this team to go next year.
Well, I want Mechie on the Patriots, but I think that he'll have some limited role. Like he can come in on like 4 or 5 receiver sets, like you're saying, but he's not going to come in on 3 receiver sets with Aguilar, Bourne, and also whoever the number 1 guy is. If it's Calvin Ridley amongst those lines, he's actually on my off-season list for the Patriots to get. I think the Patriots and the Dolphins are on the radar for Calvin Ridley because he knows Mac Jones, he knows Tua Tagovailoa. I'm going to throw in the Eagles there because he knows Jalen Hurts, and I think that Ridley with alongside Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor, that would be good too. But I have Calvin Ridley with 3 teams potentially.
Yeah, and James had an interesting comment too. I hope Ridley's mentally ready to play again. From what I've been listening, what I've been hearing, I think that really taking that whole year off really played a big factor on him. I do think he just wants to change the scenery at this point in time. It doesn't sound like kind of what I've been looking at, that he wants to be in Atlanta long term. I also would not be surprised if the Falcons decide to go a different route and try to move on from Matt Ryan and try to save a ton of money in the future. I think
they're not moving on from Matt Ryan, though. I think
I'm not saying. Laura, I'm not saying he will get moved, but I do think, from looking at a bunch of what should teams do for the offseason, there was a report I read the other day saying maybe the Atlanta Falcons should take a listen or read something into for Matt Ryan. It was getting up there in age. The Falcons are more in a rebuild, I guess you can look at it that way. So maybe drafting a quarterback long term would be a better fit for him. But I don't think Calvin Ridley kind of looks at this in terms of he was an absolute game changer a couple years ago before this situation happened. If he goes to a team that's in contender type ready mode now, like a New England Patriots type team, I think that's more, it makes a lot more sense than him coming back and playing. I mean, playing Matt Ryan's fine. I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with that, but I do think that, you see the situation, and there's a lot of other teams out there. I think that there's a couple people needing teams for receiver help that, they can push over the edge. And I think that Calvin Ridley would be a team like New England that could have that. So I do agree, Laura. I think that Ryan is staying. I don't think I've been listening or reading anything that he's going to get moved. But I do think that, him leaving at some point, maybe a couple of years or 2, would save some money and, obviously them starting to continue their rebuild and getting their guy for the future. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely. We're going to get to you, Ben, in just a minute. We're going to do our quarterback game next. So let's go back to Isaiah here. So when you talked about the 49ers, you obviously lost Mike McDaniel to be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. You brought Anthony Lynn back for next season. Do you expect Anthony Lynn to be the offensive coordinator for the Niners now?
No, I don't actually. I think he's just gonna be the run game coordinator, and he's gonna be the assistant head coach. But I think that Kyle Shanahan, the offense is his baby. So there's no way that he's going to give up, control of the offense to anybody else. McDaniels was with him for a long time, even dating back to their days when I believe both of them were interns with the Houston Texans. That's how long they go back. So of course he trusted Mike McDaniels, to be the offensive coordinator. But prior to last year, Shanahan didn't really have an offensive coordinator. He had passing game coordinators and running game coordinators, but that was about it. So I think what the Niners are going to do is they're going to go back to the system where he's going to go back to the system where they just go back to not having an offensive coordinator. Shanahan will be the play caller. which he should because he's fantastic at it, and also he's going to be one of the primary play designers as well. Which I mean that's what you want from Kyle Shanahan. That's why you hire Kyle Shanahan to be your head coach is for his offensive acumen.
And then talk about Mike McDaniel now going to the Miami Dolphins. He brought Wes Welker with him to be the wide receivers coach. How good do you think Mike McDaniel is going to do with the Miami Dolphins, working with Tua, working with Jalen Waddle, and him designing these plays to their strengths?
Here's the thing. I'm not worried about Mike McDaniel's offensive acumen. I think he'll be terrific on offense. What I'm worried about, or the reason why I said I didn't really like the hire, was because of the fact that he's only been an offensive coordinator for 1 year, and it's tough when it's like basically going from a position coach to a head coach. There's a lot more stuff to being a head coach than X's and O's. You got to be a leader. You got to galvanize men, and I don't know. McDaniels just seems too raw for me, and I mean I would have liked to have him be an offensive coordinator for like 1 or 2 more seasons rather than just getting plucked this season. But I mean, the Miami Dolphins, they made that choice, and I mean, we'll see how it goes. I think offense, they'll be fine. Defense, they'll be fine, but I'm just not sure in terms of just the locker room. That's the one part that I'm worried about is there going to be friction in the locker room? What if the Dolphins are on a 6-game losing streak? Then what happens? You need to have that strong leadership skills and qualities to be able to guide your team through that. So that's the thing that I'm worried about with Mike McDaniel is when adversity hits, are the team going to respond to him?
I think they will. And I think, I get why you're worried about it. He's only a first-time head coach. He's going to go through growing pains and all this heading into next season. But also, if you talk about the Niners, what do you think your biggest need is heading into the offseason?
I think the biggest need is obviously secondary because I think the 49ers got exposed, especially by Matthew Stafford late in that game in the NFC Championship, because their secondary is honestly not really that good. And I think that Jason Verrett, if he comes back from that torn ACL, which is going to be very tough because he's had like multiple torn ACLs already, then I think you got to re-sign him to a cheap contract, like a veteran minimum type of a deal to prove it. Jaquiski Tartt, Jimmy Ward, they're free agents. There's basically the entire 49ers secondary outside of maybe 1 or 2 players are free agents. So you definitely got to bolster that via the draft, or you got to bolster that via free agency. And I know there's a lot of, good free agents out there like a Stephon Gilmore, who I think would be great for the Niners, and a guy that I think the Niners pursued at the trade deadline before he went to Carolina, so that would be a great addition for them. Malcolm Butler is another one that I believe I've heard that he is strongly considering a comeback. That would be a good one. And even Richard Sherman. I know he's not what he once was, but I mean, he is a guy that brought great leadership to the team, and he doesn't have to be, your number 1 corner. You can just slot him in as like a number 3 or number 4 corner, and to have him as your number 3 or number 4 would be a really good addition to the team. So I think secondary is definitely a top priority for the Niners, and then I think for the other pieces would be the offensive line, because the offensive line struggled late in the season and also late in the NFC Championship game. You got to protect Trey Lance at all costs. I mean, he's your future. I don't believe any of the Brady rumors like Casey mentioned right here when he talked about the Brady thing. I know the entire Bay Area radio is literally talking about it. That's why I stopped listening to the radio the last couple of weeks because it's just utter nonsense. Until I see it from Ian Rappaport or Tom Pelissero or Adam Schefter that Brady is signing with the Niners and is unretiring to do so, I mean, I'm not going to believe any of that stuff. So it's Trey Lance's team. I don't see the Niners going after Brady or even Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you just gave up 3 first-round picks to go after Trey Lance and get Trey Lance. There's no way you're turning around and trading Trey Lance and probably a couple more first-round picks to to the Green Bay Packers for Aaron Rodgers. So it's
Mhm.
Trey Lance's team. You got to protect him at all costs. You got to get that offensive line right. And I think that the other pieces I would probably add is another pass rusher because Arden Key, who balled out on a veteran minimum contract as a free agent, it's going to be really hard to re-sign him. DJ Jones is another one because he is, I believe, an unrestricted free agent. He was fantastic as a nose tackle, but you might want to go younger at that position. And I think you got to upgrade that wide receiving core a little bit. You know, you got to say Debo Samuel, you got Brandon Ayuk, maybe add a third guy because Mohamed Sanu is just not what he once was. Juwan Jennings, I like him, but he's more of a possession wide receiver. If you can get, you know, a third guy in via the draft or maybe via free agency, I think then that would definitely help bolster Trey Lance's status in 2022.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. But now we're going to get to the fun game before we talk about games of the year and all that. It's the quarterback carousel. And
Laura, if you don't mind, before we get to it, I'd like to kind of add something about the Brady thing for the Niners with Isaiah. Isaiah, as much as it would be to have a dream to have the GOAT as my QB on your team, the likeliness of happening for that is very rare, I think. I think it's more out of reach than I think a lot of people make it credit for. It's just a whole bunch of utter nonsense that I've been looking at. Look at it this way. The Niners offered Brady a couple years ago a contract. He denied it. He didn't, as much as the Hollywood ending would kind of be with his career, he already turned it down once. What would be the thinking that he would do it again? He also turned down going to Nashville and the Titans. He turned down that situation. He decided to go to Tampa Bay, which essentially I don't think was his first option. I think the Niners were his first option, and Wes Welker essentially was a big reason why that was his first option. And now Wes Welker is not in San Francisco. So with that being said, yes, San Francisco has a great offensive core. They have a new coach. Essentially, Brady doesn't want to bring also his kids it was already a lot of taxing as it was from New England down. Essentially, he wants to be in Miami, probably where he's reportedly going to have a new place he's going to be staying at. He wants to get that brand going. The only way I see him coming out of retirement is if a team at playoff time calls and says, hey, we're lacking. We're looking for just a quarterback that could get over the hump. And they say, oh, Tom, what have you been doing these days? Have you been throwing the football around? Maybe you said sure, and coming out and just having that, which is so weird. I don't think he wants to go the Brett Favre route. I think it's done. As painful as it for me to say, he's had his time. He's had his moment. He's seen what type of quarterbacks are coming out there in terms of the young bucks. So he wants to kind of take it to the side and say, listen, it's not the me. I'm not saying Brady's a diva or he's just like, it's not the me show, but the league has seen for many, many years, okay, Brady and Breeze and Roethlisberger, all the kind of the old-time guys. And then Brady realizes and says, listen, I'll pass the torch over and let the other guys kind of do their thing. And so, yeah, I agree with Isaiah. I don't think the Aaron Rodgers situation, I think as much as intriguing that would be, I have a new place for Aaron Rodgers. I have my QB carousel, which we'll go into transition-wise just as of right now, but I just want to say that in terms of the Brady stuff.
All right. Anyways, let's go on to our quarterback carousel game. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers, and I'm going to go first and where I think he's going to stay. The Green Bay Packers are doing everything they're doing everything they can to make Aaron Rodgers happy. They just hired his old quarterbacks coach, Tom Clements, to be the quarterbacks coach. The Packers are most likely going to keep Davante Adams on a franchise tag, and they're going to go from there. So, where Aaron Rodgers will play in 2022 in my books is I have him staying with the Green Bay Packers because of two things. Number one, it's Tom Clements, his old quarterbacks coach, is back to work with Aaron, to potentially work with Aaron again. And Matt LaFleur did the right thing to hire Tom Clements. And based on what Mark Murphy and Matt LaFleur said, we want Aaron back. And the other thing is Davante Adams is going to get the franchise tag. And that's why I think Aaron Rodgers will be a Packer in 2022. Ben, where do you think Aaron Rodgers goes and why? So Lauro has Green Bay, and Ben has.
Well, Aaron Rodgers has been with Green Bay for I don't know how many years at this point now? 10, 12? And right around there, he's been there for quite a long time. And Nathaniel Hackett, I thought, was a big, contributor in terms of a lot of his success and his help there. And he went to Denver. And the Broncos have been a team out there that is just missing just this one thing, and that's the quarterback. And as much as Lower, you are right, and I think that the likelihood of the coming back to Green Bay is probably more 75% than not. But this is the carousel game. There's going to be a little more bold with me in this, so I'm going to have a little bit of fun in this. My pick for Aaron Rodgers next season is going to be the Denver Broncos. I think that it's a very logical choice and a destination. I think that you look at the AFC and how loaded their quarterbacks are, and I think Aaron Rodgers is up for that challenge. I think he sees that in a way, and I do think that Green Bay with Jordan Love when Aaron Rodgers had the unvaccinated situation, I think that's a lot of big in terms of his mind. So Jordan Love played a lot of snaps. He's starting to kind of get the system a bit here. I don't know how much longer Aaron Rodgers wants to take being in Green Bay. And I also do think, Lower, the Davante Adams situation, I do think that they'll get the franchise tag, but I do think that he's going to want the money. He's going to want the bag. And that's why I really think that the Raiders are a logical fit for Davante Adams because they can afford the money for him. The Raiders are missing just that one big-time star piece. And if that happens, Aaron Rodgers is not sticking around. And so with my little game,
if you look at it, Ben, I'll tell you, if Adams goes to the Raiders, he's going to reunite with his college teammate in Derek Carr.
Yeah. So in order essentially for this game to happen, I think James will get his wish. I really do. And I think Davante Adams is going to become a Raider. And I think Aaron Rodgers, and my little wish here, is going to become a Denver Bronco. As crazy as it sounds to go to a stacked division, that is my choice.
I disagree, Ben, because I like I told you, I think that Nathaniel Hackett wants his own quarterback. And basically, new head coach, he's going to want a young quarterback to build the franchise around. So that's why Nathaniel Hackett was brought in to be the head coach of the Broncos. And that's why I think that Hackett's going to want his own quarterback.
Like I said, Laura, I think the likelihood of him going back is more likely. But with this game, the carousel game, a lot of quarterbacks that have been rumored to go, I have them sticking around. But Aaron Rodgers, on my list right now, I have him on the move.
So you're saying that it's likely that he's staying with the Green Bay Packers?
Let's just say this. My heart probably thinks him staying, but I think that with this logical choice, I think he's going to go to Denver. Not just me.
James, I'm going to go to you next. Where do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to play in 2022?
Ben, I don't need that negativity about another great quarterback going into my division.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know every time it comes up, I'm like, it could happen. That means the Broncos would be more than decent next year. And I don't need that. I need those 2 wins in our division. At any rate, you hear everything about Aaron Rodgers. You heard about the breakup with the fiance, and that could have been a thing where Rodgers said, well, I know you want me to go to play in Tennessee or Denver or wherever, but I want to stay with Green Bay. I think Adams, as much as I want him, will have to get the franchise tag and then get the bag next year, or 2 seasons from now, I guess. I think Rodgers stays for all the reasons Loro mentioned. I can't see him going anywhere else. So I know they put out a thing last year, Rodgers and Adams, saying this was the last dance last season, but I guess this will be the last dance, just a year more, and then we'll see about next season. If we're all here, we'll talk about Rodgers again and where he'll go. So It's just a round and round carousel with Aaron Rodgers in a hole by himself. So I think he's going to stay with Green Bay for one more season.
I mean, I think the Packers want to keep him around for a long time. And Isaiah, where do you think Aaron Rodgers is playing in 2022?
Well, here's the thing. I'm kind of like Ben, where in my predictions, I have a lot of bold picks just because it's the quarterback carousel game. So, I don't know if any of these would even happen. I might strike out on like almost all of them. But in terms of Aaron Rodgers, uh, I'm gonna agree with Ben. I think he's going to Denver. I think it's just he's been in Green Bay for 15 seasons, and sorry, James, for making you cringe again. But he's been there for 15 seasons. I think when you have a change of scenery, it's always good. It always revives you. And also, Denver, they got Nathaniel Hackett now. Nathaniel Hackett was reportedly a guy that Aaron Rodgers loved in Green Bay and one of his closest friends on the Green Bay Packers. And Nathaniel Hackett has reportedly been pushing hard for a Aaron Rodgers trade to Denver. Denver's got really good wide receivers. They got Sutton. They got Judy. They have Noah Fant, who I think is very talented as well, but he's been underutilized. Then they have, the running back. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but
Javonte Williams.
Javonte Williams, that's right. He balled out this season. Plus, the defense after Von Miller left, the defense actually played really good football. Maybe it was Vic Fangio's system, or who knows, but Bradley Chubb, he'll be back. The corners, we'll see what happens. They have a lot of corners locked up. I think Denver's honestly a quarterback away, and Aaron Rodgers, he's got that team. The AFC. I know he's got Mahomes and Derek Carr and Justin Herbert in that division, but Aaron Rodgers is a competitor, and I think he wants to go there and prove that he's the best quarterback right now. So I think he's going to go to Denver.
I disagree with you, Isaiah and Ben, on this because, like I told Ben, in my brain, Nathaniel Hackett wants his own quarterback, and I think the Denver Broncos are going to draft their quarterback of the future in Kenny Pickett.
We'll see, man. That's the whole fun about this.
Yeah, we'll see. But here's the thing also is that, a lot of new coaches, they do want their own quarterback. But Aaron Rodgers would be Nathaniel Hackett's quarterback because he's not going to have Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater. If it was Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, then it wouldn't be his quarterback. But, Aaron Rodgers, apparently that's the guy Nathaniel Hackett has been advocating that Denver management go after.
I'm not sure if the Broncos are in a win-now mode, Isaiah. I think Denver's still in rebuild.
I think Loro, I think they're more in a win than – I think they're in the middle, but they add that quarterback. I think that they're become more instant compared to what they currently have at this moment right now.
Okay, anyways, the next quarterback we got next after Aaron Rodgers, we're going with Russell Wilson. I'm going first here, and who I have him playing in 2022. This one's an easy one. I had Aaron Rodgers staying with the Green Bay Packers next year. I have Russell Wilson staying put with the Seattle Seahawks. He has denied trade rumors. His focus is on Seattle, and I do believe that despite having a losing season last year because of his injuries, I am confident that Russell Wilson and the Seahawks will bounce back and get back to being a winning team next year, which I'm really confident in. I think that the offense is there for the Seahawks, especially Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. And I think that the defense has not been good this past year. I think that this year, I think this upcoming year, I would like to see the Seattle Seahawks defense get back to being the defense of old. And we'll go from there. Ben, where do you have Russell Wilson going to next season?
With a lot of boldness that I have in my list, I'm going to go with you, Loro, on this one. There was a lot of chatter last year about Russ in terms of entertaining a couple of teams. And I do think that more of this year, even He was on Radio Row this week with Chris Russo, and I was actually listening to this today, and it sounds like he's very content with being in Seattle. He wants to bring another championship. He reminds me, Laura, of the Damian Lillard situation in Portland. A guy that's been there for a long period of time, that's extremely loyal, and wants to be committed and wants to do something to bring another championship to Seattle. I agree with you, Laura. I think that the Pete Carroll relationship got much better. I think that the offensive coordinators and all that got much better. I think that they bolstered a little more on their offensive line, which of course was part of this frustration with Seattle. I think that there's going to be one more rodeo with Russell Wilson in Seattle. And then I think that next year we'll kind of start talking more of, okay, if he has one more year and there's not much in terms of progress, boom, he's getting shipped out of town.
He's not going to get shipped out of town in 2023. I do think that the Seahawks will somehow extend his contract.
Well, I do too, Loro, but I do think with kind of all this behind the scenes, I think that Russ maybe wants to see a challenge of if he's been there for a while and he sees that this roster just not in anymore. You know, the teams that were looking at him, Loro, I do agree, though. He was looking at teams like the Giants or teams like the Commanders or teams like the Eagles. Essentially, if you're Russell Wilson, do you want to go to the NFC East and essentially kind of bolster a lot of their team?
No.
Not really. The Giants have a lot of problems on the offensive line. You wouldn't want to go to a team that kind of was like Seattle in the way where their offensive line wasn't very good. I don't think you want to take many more sacks there. You go to Philadelphia, there are just reports out there today that Jalen Hurts is not going to get traded. There's not any type of reporting out there that he's going to get moved. He's not a part of it.
Jalen Hurts is the guy.
And Washington, I have another quarterback that's going there as of right now. I think that the quarterback that I have right now is a very good fit for that team. And so I look at it right now, I think that Russell Wilson is going to stay put. And I do think that, like you said, Lauro, he's very he's much satisfied in terms of his situation now than he was last year.
And James, where do you think Russ plays in 2022? You think he's going to remain a Seahawk?
I won him as a Raider after 2023, but for now, I think he'll stay with the Seahawks. I think he's just too loyal. He's a face of the franchise, and he will be for a while. I honestly think he'll stay there for the rest of his career. I think, even though they don't have a lot of draft picks, high ones, they'll try to build something around him. That's if the league really likes him, the players like him, that will come to Seattle for one more, playoff ride. So I think he stays in Seattle for now.
I think he stays in Seattle, and I do think that he's going to want to convince John Schneider to give him another contract extension so that he can finish his career with the Seahawks. I don't see him in any other uniform. Isaiah, where do you have Russell Wilson playing in 2022?
You guys ready for this?
No.
Oh!
Isaiah going bold back-to-back quarterbacks. I love it.
This might be like the most dramatic pick of the night, and that is I got him going to Tampa Bay, honestly. I got him going to Tampa Bay with the Buccaneers, and here's why. There's been a lot of smoke recently about the Buccaneers trying to target both or either Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. I think Wilson's the more likelier candidate because if you get Deshaun Watson, then you're going to have to deal with all that baggage and a possible suspension, so it doesn't really seem likely that anybody's going to trade for him right now. And you guys know the Tampa Bay front office and the coaching staff. They're very, very aggressive. That no risk it, no biscuit approach by Bruce Arians has really also taken effect on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers front office as well. And I think that Jason Licht, he's shown that he's very aggressive. He wants to win now. Bruce Arians wants to win now. And they do have the draft picks. And I really see them putting up a mega package to Seattle to get Russell Wilson to be that quarterback. Bruce Arians is 69 years old. Jason Licht is also up. He's not really up there in age, but he wants to win now as well. They have a team built to win now, and I don't think that you can let Kyle Trask be the guy that takes this team to the promised land. I don't think you can hand him the keys right now because he's just very unproven. I think you have to get a guy that's a veteran, a quarterback that is a star and ready to win now. And apparently, also Russell Wilson's wife or his fiance is also going to be a part of this decision making process as well. And she's been wanting to go to somewhere outside of Seattle, like a bigger market where her brand can shine as well. So Tampa Bay makes a lot of sense, both for Wilson professionally as well as him personally.
It's not that crazy, Laurel. I mean, I was thinking you're looking at like the Jaguars or like a team that's already have a quarterback. No, I've heard a lot of that as well too, Isaiah. I could definitely respect that, but I think that the way I look at it right now, I think that he's just too loyal, and I think that he's obviously going to have more of the input over his wife in terms of this next decision.
All right, and the next quarterback we're going to is Deshaun Watson. So despite all the legal problems that we have, I'm going to tell you guys where I have him landing. I have Deshaun Watson going to the Tampa Bay Bucks because I think that now with Tom Brady out, I think that if you look at it, folks, Deshaun Watson will have Mike Evans. He'll have Chris Godwin. I think Chris Godwin will be back. I think he has O.J. Howard in the mix in that offense too. And I also think that the Bucks have the draft picks to do it. And I do think that I really want the Buccaneers to do this. And even though I do want Atlanta to win the division next year in the NFC South, the Falcons to me now are a second place team. If the Bucks, however, land Deshaun Watson, because I still think Matt Ryan is still one of the best quarterbacks in that division. And think about it. The Bucks adding Deshaun Watson, they get their long-term quarterback. And it kind of might tell me that Kyle Trask might not be their guy. But I'm hoping he is the guy. But Jason Light really wants to swing for the fences, like Isaiah said with Russell Wilson. I have the Bucks I have Deshaun Watson going to Tampa Bay. What about you, Ben? Where do you have Deshaun Watson going to?
Well, Lauro, it's been a wild ride talking about Deshaun Watson. We've had some great talking about Deshaun for couple seasons here. Having you say he'll stay in Houston, and I agree with you for many times. This time it's over in Houston. I think Casario's fully done. He has a lot of allegations, and I think that he will definitely get the settlement done with before the season. I have him going to the Carolina Panthers. I think that Carolina is a young team. I do think that they're going to be a little bit bold. I did have the Buccaneers as his first choice, actually, but after kind of looking at it, I'm like, I'm going to go to the Bucs for another quarterback here that I think that they're going to have to pay as much money for their team, as much as they're going to be aggressive pushers. I think Carolina's been an interesting choice for him for a while. He has that Clemson connection. He kind of knows the area a little bit, and I think that Sam Darnold is just not it anymore. He's just not their future quarterback. I think that there could be a lot of chatter with Sam Darnold moving forward with somebody else. I think Deshaun Watson is a better upgrade. I think that, he has that receiver in DJ Moore. They have a young defense. But if you have him with Matt Rule, I just think that there's just a lot more that Carolina could be ready for. They're trying to get a guy like Cam Newton a reunion. That, of course, didn't work. So I think that Carolina has just been edging and looking for a quarterback. And I think that Deshaun Watson will go to Carolina.
I mean, if you look at it, I think if you look at it, Deshaun Watson would be good for Carolina. I also think, do I believe in Sam Darnold to get one more shot at it? Maybe. But I do think maybe the Panthers could get another quarterback in the second round of the draft if it's not Kenny Pickett, like a Carson Strong or something like that, to potentially save Matt Rule's job. But I know that David Tepper is an owner that wants to win now, and he wants to go for it, like I know, but he is very impatient. And Isaiah, you could agree with me on what I said about David Tepper. He wants to win. He can be impatient, and he's not impatient with Matt Rule. Where do you have Deshaun Watson going to?
I have him going to the Panthers as well, actually. I think that, the Panthers just make too much sense given the fact that the Texans will probably want to trade him outside of the NFC or the AFC, so the NFC is more likely. And the Panthers, they need to land a big time quarterback because Matt Rule is on the hot seat. If the Panthers don't have a great season next year, then Matt Rule will definitely be fired. Deshaun Watson is from North Carolina. It just makes all the sense in the world. Like it makes too much sense for this not to happen.
And then what about you, James? Where do you think where Deshaun Watson is going to go?
Yeah, I'm really torn. Well, first of all, his deposition can be taken as early as late February, so the end of this month. And then you'll have to wonder about how many games he'll be suspended for to start. And I think that all has to factor into this decision the Texans have to make and what they can get for him. I'm torn between Carolina and Tampa Bay, honestly. I think it's more likely the Panthers, but I could see the Buccaneers doing it too, because if they're not sold on Kyle Trask, well, they have to find someone. So I'm like really torn between Tampa Bay and Carolina, but I'll just say the Buccaneers for now.
That's a good one. I have him going to Tampa Bay as well. Next up, we got a former Patriot that's also going to be on the move, and that is Jimmy Garoppolo. And let me go first on this one. I have Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Houston Texans to compete with Davis Mills for the starting job. And I say that because I like Davis Mills. I'm excited about him. I think that Davis Mills will likely be the starter for the Houston Texans. But having Jimmy Garoppolo there would be good because you got Nick Caserio. Nick Caserio was the one that urged the Patriots to draft Jimmy Garoppolo. So Garoppolo would be a good veteran backup, mentor to Davis Mills. And I have him, and that's why I think he would be good for the Houston Texans. And he doesn't have to win the starting job. I would hope he does, but I think that Davis Mills is the starter. But as what Lovie Smith was saying, I heard him say that Davis Mills is going to have to go out there and earn it. Ben, where do you have Jimmy Garoppolo going to?
So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go aggressively. They try to swing a Russell to Deshaun Watson. They swing and miss. My prediction, I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting Jimmy Garoppolo. It might not be the all and end all crazy big move for the Buccaneers to get their quarterback, but it's a quarterback that has been a couple NFC title games the last couple of years. They got some elite talent. They'll understandably know if Chris Godwin comes back. And obviously, who was just there in Tampa Bay? Tom Brady. So obviously, Tom Brady and Jimmy G know each other very well from obviously playing New England. There's that connection there. And I think that Bruce Arians and Jason Light, they come up short in their aggressiveness for a big fish, so they go a little bit downgrade, and they go with more of a medium, average type. So Jimmy G and my pick here is going to go to Tampa Bay.
That would be good, but I have a reason why I have him going to Houston. It's because Ben, Nick Caserio's there. He can compete with Davis Mills for the starting job, kind of challenge him, kind of teach him. But realistically, I think Davis Mills is going to win the starting job. And I want Garoppolo there to be a good plan B just in case if Davis Mills is hurt.
I like it. It's interesting for sure.
And let's go to Isaiah. So I have Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Houston Texans to reunite with Nick Caserio. Where do you have Jimmy G going to now that he is on the trade block and now it's time for you to start the Trey Lance era?
Well, this is easy. He's going to go to Jacksonville, and they're going to trade my Niners the number one pick. And we're going to draft Kayvon Thibodeau to pair with Nick Bosa. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I wish that would happen. But, I actually got him going to the Washington football team. I think they
definitely the Commanders.
Yeah, or the Commanders. That's right. The Commanders, they need a quarterback. And Martin Mayhew is their general manager. He was with San Francisco. He's got He knows Jimmy Garoppolo very well, and for some reason, I don't know why, but it seems like the Commanders are actually willing to trade a first round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. I know me and James,
Wow,
we talked
that's
about this
wild.
on the program, like on Wild Sports Talk. I believe it was a couple shows ago, but I mean, it's insane. It really is that they're willing to trade a first round pick, if you believe those reports, for Jimmy Garoppolo. I certainly, if that happens, I mean, I certainly would be popping champagne to celebrate because a first round pick, number 11 for Jimmy G, is absolutely crazy. But I don't think they'll trade him a first round pick, but I think it's a second round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo to go to Washington.
And why do you want Garoppolo going to Washington? I think Ron Rivera wants a quarterback that he can rebuild the franchise with. That's why he should go with a young quarterback, though.
Here's why. It's because I think the Washington Commanders, they have a defense that is built to win now. I know they took a step back last year, but still. And also, I just think that they're going to swing and miss on, all their top targets. They're not going to get Rodgers. They're not going to get Wilson, as I have him going to Tampa Bay. They're not going to get Deshaun Watson. So I think he's like their fourth or fifth choice. So they're going to have to settle for him as like a placeholder. And I think they're going to draft a quarterback. I do agree with you, Laurel. I think they're going to draft one. But I think they're going to have Jimmy G as a temporary placeholder so they can have like that Trey Lance situation in Washington from the Niners this past season.
That could happen, but I really want Garoppolo in Houston because I told you, I told Ben this earlier, it's because of Nick Caserio. I love Nick Caserio. When he was with the Patriots, he did great things for our front office, and he was a really good drafter. And I do think that I want some Patriots to reunite with Nick Caserio, and that's why I want Jimmy G in Houston.
Yeah. We all have different choices for that one.
And James, where do you have Jimmy Garoppolo going to?
I haven't heard James yet. So.
Let's keep that train going. Stupidly, I feel like I'm gonna come with a bold take like Isaiah here, but if the Colts part ways with Carson Wentz, I keep telling myself there's a chance Jimmy G gets traded to Indianapolis. I feel like,
oh my God,
he can make better.
Kidding me?
He can make better choices than Carson Wentz. He doesn't have to do too much.
Good offensive line.
I feel like, the offense. Jimmy G would love the offensive line.
Good
he would
defense.
love
like San Fran or what?
And then the weapons are there. They can even get a little. Has a great running game. That's why for a couple of weeks now, I've been telling myself, you know what? I think that's a really good fit. So I'm going to say the Colts. It might be a little wild and it might be a hot take.
That's bold.
And it might not happen.
Very far-fetched, but I would really like that.
Yeah. I can see the Colts for Jimmy G.
All right. Anyways, the next quarterback we're going to is Carson Wentz. So the Colts have an opportunity the Colts are rumored to part ways with Carson Wentz. And I'm kind of thinking, if they part ways with him, where would he go? And who's going to trade for that contract? And I'm like, you know what, Colts, just cut him. And then he can sign a one-year contract somewhere to either compete for a starting job or be a backup somewhere. And I have Carson Wentz going to the Washington Commanders to compete for the starting job for whoever the Commanders draft. That's why I have them drafting Matt Corral. And I have Matt Corral being the starter and then Carson Wentz being a backup because Carson Wentz, to me, he has a good arm, but he just can't – he's just not the quarterback that he once was since his near 2017 MVP campaign. Isaiah, I'm going to go with you next. Where do you have Carson Wentz going to?
This probably is my craziest take of the entire show, and I've had some wild ones already.
I'm so ready for this.
I got a trade between two quarterbacks. I got Wentz going to Minnesota for Kirk Cousins. I think that both of these two guys, they want. It seems like both teams want to change the scenery for their guys, and I think both of them have like 1 year left. Cousins, I know, has 1 year left. If he gets an extension, he'll get like, maybe 45, 50 million. There's no way you're paying him that much money. So I think what they're going to do is I think the Vikings actually draft a quarterback in the NFL draft, and then they'll have Wentz there as like a temporary placeholder, kind of like the Trey Lance situation, and go from there.
Yeah, and then I think the reason why I have Wentz going to the Commanders as a free agent is because I don't think the Colts are going to want to trade for him, and I don't think anybody's going to want to take that contract. But we'll have to talk about who the Colts starting quarterback will be when it comes to this quarterback game here. Ben, where do you have Carson Wentz going to in 2022?
Lauro, join the club. I'm on your club right for this one for Carson Wentz. I have him going to the Washington football team as well, too.
Oh, you mean the Commanders?
Got to get used to now the new name, the Commanders. I like the fit there. I think that it's a very low-pressure situation. Carson Wentz is also in a quarterback division with a lot of question marks. Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts. So he's in a division where there's a lot of changeover with a lot of other teams. And I think that, he can go in. He has McLaurin. He has a good defense. Part of me I like it there. There's not a lot of pressure there. Taylor Heineke, I think he can compete with. I think that Heineke has proven himself that he can definitely have some things going for him for the job there. But if you want to upgrade, and I think that they're going to upgrade for something else, I'm not saying Carson Wentz is a major upgrade, but he's been around the league for a while. And I think that the Washington football team and the Colts can swing a trade for some couple picks. And I think that will be my fifth for Carson Wentz.
I'm not going to see a trade for that. I think that Carson Wentz is going to get released by the Colts. And we got to talk about who do you think the next quarterback will be for the Colts. And I have one. Could it be Sam Ehlinger? Could it be a free agent? Could they draft somebody? I think Frank Reich's a good offensive-minded head coach, good quarterback guru, but he tried to do everything he can with Carson Wentz, but it just did not work out. So, James, where do you have Carson Wentz going to?
It's almost like a lost cause, and I have him going where careers kind of die. The New York Giants.
Oh, my God.
Misery needs company, and I think they'll go well together. But for his sake, I hope he goes to Washington. I just think something with the Giants and whatever direction they want to go, if he gets released from the Colts, I can see the Giants saying, hey, you played in this division before.
It's a horrible fit in terms of their offensive line being so bad, but I could see if that happened. Oof.
Yeah, I just see misery continuing for him, and then wherever he goes, I don't see anything positive out of it. I'm hoping
Saquon will definitely be out.
Yeah, and
he'll be like, no, I'm not dealing with this anymore.
And I hope that's the case with Saquon Barkley. Everybody get out of there as soon as you can.
Paid all that money for Kenny Galladay too.
Sure,
now,
yeah.
Let's talk about
the Giants for Wentz, Lauro.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, now let's go to Derek Carr. This should be an easy one. For me, I have Derek Carr staying with the Raiders because I think that he's going to thrive in Josh McDaniels' offense, and I really am excited to see Derek Carr finish out his career with the Raiders. He's been through a lot of head coaches there, but I do think that Josh McDaniels will be the right one for Derek Carr, and I think that Derek Carr is going to enjoy working with Josh McDaniels. James, where do you have Derek Carr going to?
This has been a question that's been going on since like 2018, honestly. Every year is a prove it year, prove that you belong and prove you're one of the, not the average, but one of the best, but he puts up the numbers, right? So I think he stays with the Raiders for next season for sure, but the future is banking on each year and what he does after every year. I had a nightmare, I think, like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I know everybody here loves Jimmy G and all that, but I had Jimmy G in a couple seasons going to the Raiders because they got McDaniel. I saw a weird connection that one day, and I was like, but I just thought it'd be a weird fit. But I'm like, everything fits together when you think about it. But that's for 2 seasons for now. So I think Carr stays with the Raiders.
What about you, Ben? Where do you have Derek Carr going to?
I agree with you, Laura. I think that he stays in Vegas. Whatever stays in Vegas, stays in Vegas. Here we are. He's going to be staying in Vegas. I don't know if Laura got that or not. I know James did. But yeah, I think that he'll stay in Vegas. I think that McDaniels is going to be a good fit for him. He can bode well for his future. And I do think there was a lot of talks with a lot of other teams for Carr. But I saw what he's trying to get offered. The Raiders are. Nobody's going to want to take his contract for right now. So I don't think he's leaving.
Oh, no, absolutely not. But anyways, let's talk about the Colts for a minute. So we're going to assume that Carson Wentz is going to not be their quarterback. Who do they start? Is it Sam Ehlinger? Is he the next man up? Do they go with a free agent signing? I'd love Marcus Mariota to be a Colt because I think Mariota will thrive in Frank Reich's system. He can run out of the pocket, throw those deep passes. I have felt so sorry for Mariota that he's a backup now. I really want to see him have an opportunity to be a starting quarterback again. And I do think that he can be a really good starter in this league. And I have Mariota being a Raider. What about you? A Colt, I'm sorry. What about you, Ben? Where do you have Mariota going to?
Well, the Colts, I have 2 options. Sam Darnold, and I have Marcus Mariota. I have 2 options. Sam Darnold's been not really with a great offensive line in the past. I still think there's a lot of tools with him. I think that Frank Reich could be a good help for him, a good mentor for him. And kind of like Carson Wentz in a way, kind of a project made. I think you look at Sam Darnold, I think he's still a kind of a project made type quarterback. And he could have the offensive line. He has a defense, has some weapons there. So either have Darnold or Mariota. I agree with you, Laura. I think that Mariota could still have potential somewhere. And I think if you move on from Wentz, you're trying to find, should they go draft? Should they go via trade? But I think that the state of free agency, and I think that Mariota could probably give you 7-8 wins, knowing their coaching staff, their defense. I think that, they don't need a home run hitter at quarterback. I think that they just need kind of a serviceable quarterback. And I do think that, they could definitely still be within reach.
What about you, James? Where does Marcus Mariota go? Does he stay with the Raiders as the backup? Do you go with Jacoby Brissett, or do you go with, or does Mariota go to the Colts?
Ooh, gosh. You know what? I don't see him staying with the Raiders. I can see him going to the Steelers.
Oh my gosh, he's not going to.
I really do.
They're great, but I do think that the Steelers want to draft a quarterback that could start right away, and I do think that Malik Wells will be their starter, or whoever they draft a quarterback.
I like James' idea.
As a backup, though. Mm-hmm. As a backup, I know they want to do a little something different with the Steelers. They've had Big Ben, where he can't run out of the pocket too much.
More mobile, yeah.
Yeah, I think they want to go more exactly. You read my mind. They want to go more mobile. They saw what he did with the Raiders on those 3rd and 1s, running the option, keeping it. I think that can help in Pittsburgh. I don't know how well he can pass, but some reason I can see Pittsburgh.
All right. Now, that being said, let's talk about some favorite moments of the 2021 season here, and also talk about our favorite game of 2021. For me, I have 2. Patriots, Buccaneers, Brady's return, even though the Patriots lost. And then my other favorite game of the year, I have to say it was the Bills and the Buccaneers when Tom Brady beat the Bills in overtime to win the game. So those are two of my favorite games this season. Ben, what are your favorite games of 2021?
Well, before we go to that, I still want to kind of continue a little bit in terms of my picks that I put for the QB carousel before. So hold on to that. I'll definitely go into my thought. So for the Packers, I have Jordan Love. Denver, I have Aaron Rodgers in this thing. Carson Wentz, I have Washington. Panthers, I have Deshaun Watson. The Niners, I have Trey Lance. I think Isaiah has his guy. My bold hot take here. I have Baker Mayfield getting traded to the Minnesota Vikings. I think Kirk Cousins is going to go to the Cleveland Browns and pair up with former coach Kevin Stefanski. I think that Baker Mayfield and the Browns are kind of off in terms of their situation. I think there was a reporter from the Browns saying that the Browns might want to upgrade their certain situation with Cleveland, and I don't think Russell Wilson will be out there. So I do think that Kirk Cousins is manageable for their system. And I think that with him having one more year left anyway, I think that a QB trade swing like Isaiah had earlier, I think that it's the Browns and the Vikings for mine here. And also, too, Loro, Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, I have him sticking in New Orleans. I think that that's the right fit for him. So I have him going to stay there. And then anybody thinking Kyler Murray's going to get traded and moved around, that is out of the picture. I have him staying in Arizona. So those are essentially all the other things that I have. And then Isaiah, too, the Steelers, I am getting Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett's probably going to be the first quarterback coming off the board. That's why I have the Steelers getting Malik Willis.
Mm-hmm. You know, guys, I really like I like what you said, Ben, with the quarterback trade. We saw what happened with Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, and how it sort of worked out for both teams. One more than the other, of course, but maybe that'll revitalize both careers of Cousins and Mayfield. So I kind of like that idea. I don't know if each team will make that will pull that switch, but it's really something to look into. I kind of I would be interested if that trade went down.
Yeah. Anyway, so with that being said, here, Ben, tell us now what are your favorite games of 2021 is, and also and we'll go from there.
So I have two games that I would interest in this year. The first one was involving James's team and the Chargers and the Raiders. It was the final game of the regular season. It was a huge playoff implication. And I think that essentially if you were not a Raider fan and if you're not a Charger fan, you were hoping for the inevitable tie. And essentially we saw with the minute left, Brandon Staley essentially decided to be not there. And he decided to give James and the Raiders their wish of advancing, which of course he was very excited about. And like I said, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, you're probably drinking, you're probably panicking because you're looking at this saying, wait, we got a 10% chance of making the playoffs coming into that week. And everything essentially lined up. You have the Colts losing to Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. All you just needed was a win, I think, from either team and just no tie. And here we are with about a minute left. Everybody's like, tie. And all of a sudden, we look at him like, wait, it's 3 seconds left. Carlson's kicking the field goal. And, But anyway, that game was incredible. Justin Herbert coming 4th down after 4th down, time and time again. I just think it was incredible. I know James is shaking his head. He's just like, this is our defense, man. You just can't get them off the field overtime and time stop-wise. But that was a favorite game of mine. Just a game that was really up there. And then the Bills-Chiefs. I mean, come on now. I mean, this was, I think, the two quarterbacks that are going to be the best two quarterbacks, I think, for the league in the many, many years. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. It brought a lot of 2018 vibes to me of the AFC Championship game between the Patriots, Chiefs, Brady, Mahomes, overtime, and just back and forth. It was 20 points or something like the last 2 minutes of the game. So, I mean, chaos at its finest. And I just think that if I wanted to watch a game again this year and replay it, that's the game I'm looking at.
Me too, Ben. That is a really good game. But you know what? Like we talked about Thursday, the Buffalo Bills, they have unfinished business heading into next season.
They do, yeah. So we'll
So
see. Of course, they'll remember that game for sure. And
they're gonna use that as motivation heading into
Mhm.
next season. I have a really good feeling that the Bills are gonna go far next year.
Mhm.
And James, what is your favorite game of 2021?
I have three. Of course, number one is the Week 18 with the Chargers and Raiders. All sorts of emotions were going on while I was watching with my friends, and drinks, of course, too. Just wild the way that the game was going. You know, I I seen the script before where the Chargers were coming back and whatnot. That game had a roller coaster of emotions with everything on the line. And to drink champagne after the game and give a drunken speech, that was awesome. And for my team to make the playoffs. Week 17, if you recall, Logo, with the Chiefs and Bengals, for the Bengals to defeat the Chiefs in the way that they did, to win their division over Kansas City in that game, it felt like a fresh breath of fresh air, a total relief for all the Bengal fans to have a winning season, to win the division that game. It was a definite just a sigh of relief, I think, for Cincinnati. And then for Ben and Loro, my third game, do you recall when the Patriots went into Orchard Park on that Week 13 Monday Night Football? Remember, the winds were like, what, 40, 50 miles per hour, I think, Loro, and you couldn't kick the ball, you couldn't pass the ball. So what do? You run the ball. And I think, what was it? Mac Jones only threw twice. He was 2 for 2 for like 14, 16 yards, whatever it may have been. And I was just proud of that because they didn't overthink things. They didn't pass the ball much. They said, hey, we have Stevenson, we have the other running backs going. Let's just run it down their throats. And Bill Belichick, being the genius that he is, he did the damn thing. And I was so happy for that game because I think my dad always said, it's always smart to run the ball with those conditions. And I hope he enjoyed that game and all the Patriot fans enjoyed that game, beating that division rival with the Bills. So those are my three games, my favorites of 2021.
Anyways, now that being said, now let's talk about our favorite storyline in 2021 for me. It has to be that when the Patriots released Cam Newton, that really made my whole entire season. I didn't think he was starter material. I think that if you look at it, I also think that Mac Jones being drafted by the Patriots and then starting him week 1, that had to be my favorite storyline of the 2021 season. What about you?
I have three as well. At first, it was the issues with the Chiefs and losing games. As a Raider fan, of course, I was enjoying every minute of it, but knowing that, hey, they're still better than everybody else, and they'll probably still win the division, in which they did, as you know. The second one was the LA Rams, acquiring all these veteran players, and look where it got them, to the Super Bowl and winning it. Von Miller getting a second chance, as well as OBJ. You got Stafford in the offseason, Sonny Michel coming over. That really set the tone for the Rams to say, hey, we're going all in, and we're showing that we are. And then the third, of course, favorite storyline was the surprise success of the upstart Bengals. A lot of people had, 6 or 7 wins for them, and they definitely exceeded those expectations. They broke through the ceiling, and I was so happy. Even though they beat the Raiders in the playoffs, I was so damn happy for the Cincinnati Bengals this year.
Yeah, that was really good. And then nobody even thought that the Bengals would be going far. So, anyways, let's talk about an early preview of 2022. So, I'll tell you what, for the Patriots, I think the Patriots will continue to grow as a young team and as a unit. And I feel like that the Patriots heading into this offseason and heading into next season, I am confident that they're going to fill their needs and that they're going to need a number one receiver for Mac Jones, either if it's via free agency, via trade, or draft. And am confident that it's going to happen here. James, what is your early preview of 2022 for your Raiders?
Well, my wish list is drafting a receiver, and we went through it. London, Wilson or Olive.
Chris Olave. But what about Treylon Burks? What about Treylon Burks?
If those three don't go, then I'm happy with Treylon looks. Yeah, I'm good with that. And then I'm hoping for the coaches from New England to bring in a culture change for the better. I'm hoping for the Raiders that players and coaches won't be in the news for bad things on and off the field. I'm hoping for the defense not to struggle in the passing game. I'm hoping, of course, for every single team. But for the players to start healthy and avoid really, really bad injuries, to get off to a hot start, and then win consistently, which it seems like they really never have recently, of course, through the season. And then easily make a wild card spot. You know, I probably lost some life from that Charger Raider game and the weeks before that. And then have a playoff run like the Bengals did this year. That's what I'm hoping for 2022 with the Raiders.
For my Patriots, I'm just hoping that we're going to continue to get better and keep rebuilding the team around Mac Jones since it's a relatively young team. You ought to give him a number one receiver, which I'm confident that we will, and we will go from there. But on my offseason wish list, I have the Patriots, Trayvon Walker from Georgia. I want him to be one of our defensive ends on the team, starting-wise. I would like a reunion with Chandler Jones. Does Jamie Collins stay? I would love for him to stay, but I have a feeling that he might go somewhere else. And he might reunite with Josh McDaniels with the Raiders. As much as I want him to be back, I would move Kyle Van Noy to middle linebacker and keep Matt Judon at outside linebacker. And I would bring Chandler Jones back as an outside linebacker. And then you draft Trayvon Walker to be the defensive end for the Patriots since we have the 21st pick in the draft. I know that you guys, you would be good with Treylon Burks, but I have your Raiders with the 22nd pick, actually, drafting Drake London from USC.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that or the next best option. You know, I was the one guy, I think, back in 2020 that didn't want Henry Ruggs III. I wanted Justin Jefferson, and he fell all the way down to Minnesota. And you know who's the best out of that draft class right now? Justin Jefferson. So I'm really scarred by the Raiders' moves recently with their drafts. For me, I really want Davante Adams. I don't know how. It all depends on, Mr. Rogers and if he moves to another neighborhood. Of course, on defense, you can get better. I don't know how much Tyrann Mathieu has left, but we'll see if he gets moved and if the Raiders are a move for him as a safety there. And then my second would improve the offensive line at right guard, Brandon Sheriff. I think that would be a nice move. It would give Derek Carr more time in the pocket. But the number one thing is to get either Davante Adams or draft a playmaker receiver.
All right, let's get to our final thoughts here. So my final thoughts is it was a great show, great season for the NFL. Looking forward to when our next show is come March 13th, when we will predict where free agents will land before the new league year. What are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts, it's been a wild season, first of all, with all the moves And then with all the games, we had a lot of overtime games and, upsets. When you think about Jacksonville, when you think about that Week 18 game. Also, you know how we were going to 2022 preview. I'm hoping there's less controversy on and off the field. Honestly, we don't need another Gruden or Urban Meyer situation. Anything like that. I'm
hoping there's no controversy.
Yeah, I know it's good news. I know it's news to talk about, but I'm hoping for better. I'm hoping people delete their emails or don't say anything out loud, basically. It's been a great season. Thank you for having me on here throughout the season on the Extra Point here. I remember commenting a lot and, loving the people on this show and saying, oh, that'd be nice to come on one day and, give my opinions. And, fortunately, I got on here and I'm just happy to be on here. And when did you say was the next show?
March 13th is the next show for when we preview free agency. And also, folks, don't forget, Kenny Lee wasn't on today, but he'll be on for the next show. And there will be a Wild Sports Talk special with me and Kenny Lee as Kenny Lee makes his debut on the MI6 Sports Network tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to hosting a special show with him as we are going to be recapping the NFL season with him and also talk about his Philadelphia Eagles and all that. So we're going to so you don't want to miss out on that as Kenny Lee makes his MI6 debut tomorrow, and then he'll make his Extra Point debut on the 13th of March. So for James Gonzalez, Ben Kearse, Loro signing off for now, and also for Isaiah and our good man Stephen Wang, our wonderful producer. Have a great rest of your day or night, and we will talk to you all on the 13th to bring in the new league year with free agent signees and maybe some potential trades on the horizon. Have a great night.
Yeah. I ain't choose the game chose me. I'm a champion, I need some trophies. I can draw the lane, I can shoot the three. I can run 100 yards, I can throw it deep. I ain't choose the game chose me. I'm a champion, I need some trophies. I can draw the lane, I can shoot the three. I can run 100 yards, I can throw it deep. I got what it take to be a champ. You know bars life, you should come and join the camp. Title after title, put my rivals off the map. Thought you had the trophy till I came in for the snatch. I was born in it, not sworn in it. I ain't come to play, my wrist mean all business. Running like a mimic, check my jersey, authentic. In Oakland with some Raiders till my haters deal with it. I'm in the field with it. Stop playing. I ain't choose the game chose me. I'm a champion, I need